Let's begin with a Brexit question. The British election is next week. If the Conservatives win a majority, even though that is looking perhaps a little less likely today, and Brexit goes through, how does VTB respond?
Well, first of all, I think Conservative will win, though I made a mistake when I put on sterling before my personal money and lost them, because I never thought that Britain would leave EU, basically. But now it's happening, and I think it will happen. But of course, my opinion is too early to say what will be the consequences for any business, financial business, because we don't know what Brexit means today. We don't know. We're talking about different kind of possible solutions for this.
If it were a hard Brexit, how many people would you need to move out of London?
Well, I don't think we'll move a lot, because our business in London is not focusing on Europe. Its main focus on Asia and Africa. From this point of view, Brexit will not affect very much our business, that's for sure. We have our own European infrastructure in Frankfurt, in Vienna, and that probably we'll have to strengthen it because of Brexit. But otherwise, we don't see much negative effect on our London activity.
And just to be clear on what you said before, heading into the Brexit vote last year, you placed a personal bet on sterling and lost, and the pound dropped to 120.
And lost, yes, yeah.
Are you positioned in sterling now?
No, no. Because you shouldn't. If you don't know about politics, you shouldn't play with it.
Let me ask you this question: President Trump's top economic advisor, Gary Cohn, has ruled out any easing of U.S. sanctions on Russians, and said, as you probably noted at the G7 meeting in Italy over the weekend, that if anything, those sanctions will be toughened. How would that affect your company?
Well, first of all, I know Gary Cohn quite well from his years in Goldman Sachs. I think he's a great banker, and I think he's a good advisor for Mr. Trump. But what we see in America, unfortunately, that Russia is just some kind of the playing card in domestic politics, when the substantial part of American elite who opposes Trump is actually preventing him from performing his duty as a president. And that's why we, to a certain extent, Russian-American relationship is a hostage of this. And that's very unfortunate, because we have a lot of, besides sanctions, we somehow used to live with sanctions, but there's other important issues like fighting terrorism, like Syria, like Ukraine, many other things, when America could have quite a constructive role, but unfortunately can't, because they can't build a policy toward Russia.
But the reality is the sanctions remain in place. And if we take Mr. Cohn at his word and those sanctions may get tougher, what would that mean?
We never thought that sanctions will be released very quickly. I don't personally believe that sanctions will be strengthened, because what was said is if the situation worsened in Ukraine, I don't expect this. So I think they will stay as they are. But it's as I said, we used to live with this. We know how to deal with this. We are not very much suffering nowadays, because after 3 years, we already don't know what sanctions are.
What is the impact of sanctions on an annual basis on your profit? 3 years ago, it was terrible. Today, it's what? Can you quantify it?
We don't think it's really affect our profitability. We're not focusing on at all. We're now focusing because, sanctions really covers two areas. There's a new capital, and we receive this capital support from the government. And in the future, we very much rely on our profit for further capitalization. And secondly, there's a long-term funding. But we are now over-liquid with dollars particularly. So frankly speaking, this kind of sanctions we are living with quite comfortable.
Before the election, Mr. Trump was promising a warmer relationship with Russia. Do you still think that's possible?
Well, I think he wants, if not warmer, but more constructive relationship. And I think that's a very good reason for this, because the whole world will sleep better if Russia and America will have better relationship. But his ability to conduct any policy now is under the threat.
The whole world would sleep better. Why?
Because Russia and America are largest nuclear powers, and not to have dialogue between them, I think, makes the world a much more dangerous place to live.
Because there's a risk of what?
Risk of any conflict which can happen. I mean, let's face the fact, we had a situation before. And
you're referring to the Cold War?
Cold War. And we are now in the Cold War, effectively.
You believe this is a new Cold War?
Absolutely. Absolutely. from the side of America, that's for sure.
The Russian ambassador to Washington, Mr. Kislyak, has emerged as a key figure in the U.S. investigations. You yourself were a diplomat. Should Mr. Kislyak, in retrospect, been more careful about his contacts with members of the Trump team?
But you know, for ambassador, the more contacts he has, the better he performs. You know, the high position he might have in the future, though maybe not in the case of Mr. Kislyak. So it's very strange. I am personally meeting American ambassador on a regular basis, British ambassador and other ambassadors. And of course, I'm not part of any administrations, but I think it's quite natural. I don't see why it is considered to be a treason in America. Ambassadors exist for only one reason, actually, to have contacts.
Well, the meeting itself, I don't think, any meeting that he may have had isn't in and of itself
discussion, sanctions, and other things. What's wrong about it?
Doesn't raise suspicion of treason. It's the substance of the meeting. What was discussed in those meetings?
What substance?
That interests
we don't
people.
know. We don't know what's discussed and why it is bad. Personally, I don't know. Maybe I'm not very well informed. I don't know. Maybe somebody in the Senate or Congress knows much more than us. But I don't know whether you know something wrong, which was discussed between the two gentlemen or others. I don't know.
I think we're all waiting to find out what the House and Senate investigations
For 2 or 3
reveal.
years. For 2 or 3 years.
You think that's how long it's going to take to get to the bottom of this?
I think. I remember I worked in London. All the royal commissions work very long, and I think the same with the commissions in the Senate and Congress. I think it will last for quite a while.
Mr. Kostin, with so many revelations about Russians, if you will, having meetings and calls with, and perhaps even making payments to members of the Trump team, again, this is all under investigation. The easiest assumption for people in the United States to make is where there's smoke, there's fire. You say that's nonsense. How can you be so sure that nothing happened?
No, I can't be so sure. Our own argument is show us facts, name us some names or whatever. Just show us what's wrong was done. Not just a leakage of something goes wrong. That's exactly the message how used. No smoke without fire, but show us the fire.
I suspect that you're as familiar as I am with the public reports that Congress made available about American intelligence, concerning what American intelligence learned about the election. They concluded that this country, the state, meddled in U.S. elections. Is that a conclusion you dispute? So those are things we know. They've made that public. We know them in as much as that's what they've said.
Well, you know, secret services can play their own games also. You know, you never know. I mean, let's wait to see any investigation. I don't know. I mean, frankly speaking, I think American governments always were intervening with the Russian election. Let's put it very. And it's probably that will happen all the time. But at the moment, we don't see any reasons. I mean, do we seriously believe that Russia can influence the elections? The leakage of some kind of the documents of Mrs. Clinton, what's so wrong about this? What Mrs. Clinton had in this communication, that revelation of this,
well,
even with
hacking her, there's something wrong with hacking somebody's email, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. But who did it? Russian officer in the KGB? I mean, show us this. It's very simple. I think it's a witch hunt. I think it's real witch hunt.
Let me ask you this.
We don't have any other
You believe it's a witch hunt? You agree with the president?
Absolutely. I share the opinion of Mr. Trump. Absolutely here.
Here's an important question for you. Will we find out in the course of this investigation that either you personally or your company, VTB, are somehow involved?
I'll pay you $1 million then.
No.
Immediately.
I'm not here to make. I'm not here to make bets. I'm not here to make
anybody
bets.
in this.
I just want to ask you a straight question. Will those investigations uncover any evidence of meetings with or discussions that you personally or your bank had with any of the people who have emerged as persons of interest? Mr. Manafort, for example, Mr. Flynn, any of those folks?
Nonsense. It's nonsense.
No is the answer?
Absolutely.
Absolutely
It's nonsense.
Not. You understand why I had to ask the question?
Absolutely.